I've always been a rough sleeper, and so I've listened to a great many bedtime stories in my life. And my favorite has always been Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I loved it because it was never about being the biggest and the best or being the smallest, but being right there in the middle. And so, as an electrical engineer, I've always found it fascinating that one of the most important devices is the semiconductor. Semiconductors are materials that are the building blocks of transistors, which are then the building blocks of chips. The semiconductor industry is responsible for chips and computers and everything in between. And all it is an electrical device like a switch, where if you apply a voltage to one end, it allows another current to pass through, like turning on a light switch. And we have learned about it in almost every single electrical engineering classes. I have learned about the manufacturing of it. I have learned about its applications and the processes and its history. It is one of the most important things. And so, as I keep track of the news, it's fascinating to me that AI in 2025 is one of the leading causes of change in the semiconductor industry. And there are three key reasons that we're going to examine, or three key talking points. First is what exactly the relationship between AI and semiconductors are. Second is how are manufacturers able to keep up with this increase in demand? And finally, how are nation states responding on a geopolitical stage to this? So first, I hope your neurons are firing, but if they aren't already, maybe we can get some assistance from AI through AI chips. Now, the relationship between AI and semiconductors is the computer chips. AI requires massive computational power, which means that we need to be building bigger and smarter and better chips every single year, and that we've been doing. According to IEEE Spectrum, on March 28th, 2024, NVIDIA's newest chip boasts 80 billion transistors, which is a 50% increase in its model from last year. This is huge, and it's the only reason that we have super smart AI models like we do right now, like ChatGPT 3. Without this, we would have no ChatGPT 3. And the gap in the marketplace and the demand for this is super apparent. I mean, new companies have been getting started from it. One of the key ones is called Cerebras, which is developing a 4 trillion transistor chip, which is huge, branching across 21 centimeters, which is absolutely massive for a chip like that. Now, chips, huge, bigger than we've ever seen. So how exactly are we doing it, and how are these manufacturers keeping up with that? There's two key answers, and they both involve increased manufacturing capabilities. One is improved lithography. Lithography is it's like stenciling, where we're able to use UV lasers to etch microscopic circuit boards onto our chips. And we've been getting bigger and better at this. In fact, right now, we're able to create them on a 3 nanometer scale. It's absolutely tiny. And another additional manufacturing capability that we've learned is using multiple dies. A die is a round little chip, like a die, and that is the surface that we are able to do the lithography on and produce these chips. Previously, we used monolith dies, which are just one huge die that the whole chip goes on. But now we've been using multiple dies strung together. And according to CNET on March 10th of 2024, we found, or 2022, the M1 chip, Apple's new AI chip, first of its kind, was made by stringing together multiple dies. That's how we were able to get a super powerful chip small enough to fit onto your smartphone. So with all these increased manufacturing abilities, you have to think, where is this taking place and how are nation states responding to it? And that is a huge topic of conversation. In fact, there is almost a trade war between the United States and China. The United States is trying to increase its semiconducting capabilities. One of its biggest things that it's done is called the U.S. CHIPS Act, which gave $52 billion to the U.S. semiconductor industry. This was a game changer. In fact, according to the Yale Journal of International Affairs, on May 17th, 2025, this led to 90 projects across 22 states, and additionally, it led to even more private investors trying to hop in the game, with over $450 billion in private investments. Absolutely huge. But China sees this, US trying to prop up its AI and its manufacturing capabilities with semiconductors, and they want to hop in and compete, especially since the United States has stopped exporting our chips to China for fears of them reverse engineering the processes. And so China has begun creating their own private independent pipelines for semiconductor capabilities. And in fact, they've come out with a new smartphone, a Huawei smartphone, which has a semiconductor AI chip that is smaller and more powerful than what the United States uses. So absolutely insane. So now that we've talked about the causes of AI and semiconductors, how people are building them up, and like how nations are responding, let's recap. AI needs semiconductors because they need more powerful chips. Manufacturers have to respond by building better things, and every nation, especially the United States, wants to be the best. Now, that's a fascinating story, but maybe not as good of a bedtime story as Goldilocks and the Three Bears, because after listening to it, I cannot fall asleep. Thank you.